Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. My special guest today, Alvin J. Schexnider, author of Confessions of a Black Academic. It's a memoir. And we're bringing it to life here today a little bit. So he's an award-winning author, a genealogist,
Right,
a board of governance consultant.
right.
He holds a BA in political science. I'm bragging about you here. Wow. For you make this sound look easy, but this is a lot of work here. Grambling State University. He's got an MA and a PhD in political science from Northwestern University, where he held Norman Waite Harris Ford Foundation and Woodrow Wilson Fellowships. Alvin began his academic career as an assistant professor of political science at Southern University, followed by faculty and academic administrative appointments at major research institutions, including Syracuse University, Virginia Commonwealth University, and the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. In 1986, he was appointed chancellor of Winston-Salem State University. He is also forming, and by the way, let me pause right there. We're not finished yet, but with your accomplishments, you talked in the first segment about how your community, and your mother and your father really encouraged preparing yourself for when there was desegregation or when you had opportunities present themselves. And this is a lot of work that you've and these accomplishments. It might be the best I've ever seen with any guest on this show. The accomplishments were probably hard fought and won, and just kind of emphasized that you did have an upbringing that encouraged this.
Right,
You can see it here.
right.
He's also a former executive vice president and interim president of Norfolk State University, from which you retired in 2007, Dr. Schexnider. After an 18-month hiatus, can't keep a good man down, he accepted an appointment as an interim president of Thomas Nelson Community College. He currently leads Schexnider and Associates LLC. It's a consulting practice limited to board governance, executive coaching, and strategy. He's a senior fellow, senior consultant at the Association of Governing Boards of Universities and Colleges, the AGB. He's the co-author of Blacks in the Military and author of 4 books: Saving Black Colleges, Mayfeld and Schexnider, a portrait of a family that received the 2023 Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, the AAHGS International Book Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we're talking about today, his latest book, Confessions of a Black Academic, a memoir.
Right.
Now, I'm going to bring you in here, but just give me, let me read a little bit about what the book's about, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
we'll come back in. In your book, Confessions of a Black Academic, a memoir, you share the experiences that shaped your career and the challenges presented by race. And you detail how you navigated various challenges in your policies and your practices, and examine how events of your youth shaped your views on race, including segregation, the execution of a Black man in your hometown, the lynching in the South, and the pervasive opposition and violence spawned by the civil rights movement. The first half of your career was spent at white colleges, and the second half of your career roughly was spent at historically Black colleges and universities, where
Right.
you felt a sense of commitment. Well,
Right.
describe that sense of commitment.
Well, what's interesting about historically Black institutions is that they were created at a time of great turmoil and outright opposition to the very idea of educating Black people. And so these institutions are iconic because when you think about it, Jeremiah, when you think about the Black middle class, there would be no Black middle class without Black colleges and universities, because for the most part, we were not allowed to enroll at white colleges and universities. And so up until the post civil rights era, the vast majority of African Americans who went to college went to an historically black college for the most part. I mean, more than 90%. That's not to say that there weren't exceptions. People didn't, there were folk who went, as we well know. There were some, particularly student athletes, who were admitted to some of the major, white research universities. But for the most part, that role was fulfilled by black colleges and universities. And so I'm a huge fan of what they've been able to do, what they've been able to create. And they have operated on thin resources and have done a lot in ways that I think aren't fully appreciated.
In Confessions of a Black Academic, the memoir, or a memoir, you acknowledge challenges and opportunities that HBCUs face.
Right.
You offer strategies to put them on a sustainable path to secure their future. You said, I'm going to quote you here, Confessions is a study in contrast to experiences at white and black universities regarding mission, leadership, resources, and organizational culture. What are some of these contrasts?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think my career is unique in the fact that I spent a significant part of time in those two different environments. I think because historically black institutions began with limited resources, oftentimes in locations off the beaten path and in rural or quasi-rural environments. They simply didn't have the level of state support or private support. At the beginning, black colleges and universities were supported by the American Missionary Association and abolitionists following the conclusion of the Civil War. So they began without the resources that most schools had, white schools had, and they did some incredible things, notwithstanding the lack of resources. And I think that to this very day, a number of these institutions suffer because they've never been fully supported, if they're a state school, by the state governments. And if they're private schools, and many of the private schools were church related. They've never been supported at that level either. So I think over time you develop a pattern of doing more with less, but it is increasingly difficult to remain competitive if you are trying to prepare students who are going to compete with graduates from all over the world, as is the case now. When I finished college, I was competing with students for jobs from Texas, Mississippi, Alabama. But now today's average college graduate is competing with students from all over the world. And so not every school can afford to provide a study abroad experience. And so it's different, it's difficult. And I try to highlight what these schools have done incredibly accomplished, notwithstanding the historic inequities in funding.
Well, that's really great. And the book, again, pick up a copy on Amazon. You can get it right away. Confessions of a Black Academic, a memoir by Alvin J. Schexnider. He's my special guest today. You've said your personal commitment is to provide recommendations and support about what can be done to enable these iconic institutions to strengthen American higher education's vitality, efficacy, and diversity. So is this book, because I really want everybody to read it, is this book for everyone?
Yes, it is, because it's not just, as I said, I mean, it reflects my career. Half of my career was spent large research, i.e. white institutions, and then I made this commitment to try to make a difference at historically black institutions. So yes, I chapter 12, which is the last chapter, is about the future of historically black colleges and universities, and I've got some specific recommendations about how we can put these institutions on a sustainable path. Many of them have tended to be what I call insular. And historically, the schools that raised money through capital campaigns were private institutions, but the level of state support for public institutions has been declining for the last 4 decades. And so we need to look at some novel ways to ensure that the schools get the resources and can recruit the faculty and students that will enable them to have a sustainable future.
So important. So many important um, initiatives and stories in this book. Confessions of a Black Academic, a Memoir, and recommendations. Alvin J. Schexnider. Pick it up on Amazon. And for more information on Dr. Schexnider, visit schexniderllc.com. I'm going to spell it for you. SCHEXNIDERLLC.com. We'll be right back.